The tugboat, for its size, is the most powerful craft afloat. And the star tugs are the power behind the docks and waterways that make up the big city port. This is Tugs. Echoes. Written and read by TARDIS9. Based on the television series Tugs by Robert D. Cardona and David Mitton. Any vessel, be they a Z-stack or one of my star tugs, will tell you that their greatest enemy is always fog. On any given night, heavy fog will always mean a long journey home. Not only because most vessels without radar in those days had to go slowly, but also because it was very easy to become lost in even the most familiar of areas. And even then, it was not impossible for some boats to turn up in the most strangest of places. You see, fog gave everything a very different feeling altogether. A feeling of something of the supernatural. I remember one particular night when it was very foggy indeed. 10 Cents and Sunshine were out at Demda Rocks. They had just delivered their usual delivery of fuel to Lily Lightship, and were now on their way home back to the Star Dock.
"Here, this frog's a real piece super, eh?"
remarked Sunshine.
"Yeah, well, come on,"
said 10 Cents.
"You heard what Captain Star said. The White Fleet's coming up this way tonight."
"Oh, don't mention them 10 Cents," Sunshine groaned.
"I still have nightmares about that last time, man." "Oh, Sunshine, you're not still on about King Neptune, are you?"
10 Cents chuckled.
"Hey, you can't say much, man,"
Sunshine retorted hotly.
"You're the one who had his eyes closed." "Oh, look, I was only kidding,"
10 Cents replied. Just then, they heard a horn blast. They looked to starboard and saw a small white figure emerging from the fog. It looked like a member of the White Fleet. However, as the figure came closer, the two star switchers were relieved to see a small flat cap on top of the figure's bridge, and knew who it was.
"Evening, Coast Guard,"
remarked 10 Cents.
"Good evening, 10 Cents, Sunshine,"
greeted the Coast Guard.
"What brings you out this way, then?"
"We're out delivering fuel to Lily," explained Sunshine.
"Yeah, the White Fleet's due by any minute,"
added 10 Cents.
"Captain Star says they found some old wreck up the coast, so as they're going by this way, Lily asked us to deliver her fuel slightly earlier than usual, to ensure her light stays on for them. And so that we're gone before they arrive. You know what happened last time we saw them." "I see," said the Coast Guard. "Never went in for ghosts myself. Too much silly superstition, if you ask me."
"Anyway, what are you doing out here, Coast Guard?" asked Sunshine. "The fog's a bit thick for anyone to try smuggling stuff in."
"Aha, that's where you're wrong, Sunshine,"
grinned the Coast Guard.
"Fog is perfect weather for smuggling. If no one can see them, they and their goods can get in undetected. That's why I'm on patrol. That, and who knows what vessels can wind up in danger in this weather. Anyway, must be off. I've still got a lot of ground to cover before I turn in. Give my regards to OJ when you see him." "Yeah, sure thing, Coast Guard. See ya,"
10 Cents said as the Coast Guard moved off.
"Hey, take care, sir,"
Sunshine called. As soon as the Coast Guard was out of earshot, he looked nervously at 10 Cents and asked,
"Do you think he'll be all right?" "What, old Coast Guard?"
10 Cents replied.
"Yeah, course he will. He's the Coast Guard, ain't he? I'm telling you, Sunshine, there ain't nothing that scares him. Nothing and nobody."
The Coast Guard looked around him. Fog was everywhere, yet he could see the coastline clearly through it all. He kept the wind slightly on one cheek and always stayed close to the shoreline. He had OJ to thank for that bit of advice. Like all other residents of the port, he knew better than to ignore the old paddle steamer's warnings. His fuel tank was only half full, but he had not seen any need to refuel himself before he left the port.
"I've plenty of fuel for this run,"
he told himself. He watched as other vessels passed him by. First he saw Big Mac and Top Hat towing some log barges into the port. Then he saw Zip and Zug towing a rusted old tramper upriver to Burke and Blair, and promptly warned them against trapping anyone with it as a result. Then he passed Blue Nose, towing a load of munitions to the naval base up the coast, and promptly ended up on the receiving end of several complaints about
upstart civilians not giving way to a superior naval officer. "Oh, give me strength,"
groaned the Coast Guard. But soon Blue Nose was out of sight and far behind him. The Coast Guard breathed a sigh of relief as he slowed down to let the White Fleet pass him by. It had been a long, hard day, and he was now running low on fuel. He only had enough to get him back to Big City. But just then, he saw something shoot up into the sky. A bright red light shone through the fog. It sparkled brightly for a minute, then disappeared. The Coast Guard grew concerned. He knew a distress flare when he saw one, and this most definitely was it. Uncertain of what to expect, he moved towards it, his pace quickening as he saw a bright orange glow coming from where the flare had been launched from. A tramper lay a few yards in front of him, burning brightly like a funeral pyre. The Coast Guard could just about see the megaphone coming from the bridge.
"Mayday! Mayday!"
it shouted to him.
"Please help us! We're burning up!"
"Ahoy there!"
he called out as he came to a halt beside it.
"Might I ask what assistance you require?"
"Evacuation! All hands have abandoned ship! It's just me, my navigator, and the coxswain left! We've exhausted our supply of lifeboats, and our one remaining boat is too badly damaged by fire! Our cargo is oil, and it's burning up fast! We have radioed for a fire crew, but we cannot last much longer!"
"Understood,"
the Coast Guard replied.
"I would like to offer my services to you. Jump ship and climb aboard me, and that's an order. Quickly now."
He watched as the bridge door opened and three cinched figures, dressed in ragged sailors' uniforms, jumped off the deck, splashed into the sea, and climbed up onto his front deck. Wasting no time, he quickly charged forwards, just clear of the tramper, as it exploded and sunk into the sea.
"Oh, thank you,"
said the captain, feeling very relieved.
"You're very welcome,"
said the Coast Guard.
"But now I must ask you, what exactly caused the fire?"
"Well, I'm blown if I know,"
said the captain.
"And I don't doubt my crew will tell you the same. But I have a feeling it was caused by a fault in the engines. I wouldn't put it past my bosses to have known about this. I tried to tell them to get that old heap repaired and refitted with new engines, but they just wouldn't listen to me."
"Oh, that sounds familiar,"
the Coast Guard groaned.
"And that's the second clean-up operation I have to do in a month."
He shuddered violently as he remembered his near miss at the chemical plant.
"Anyway, might I ask where you are headed?"
he asked.
We were just headed to Big City,"
the captain explained.
"but there's no chance of us getting there by sea now, not with this fog. We were lucky to get as far as we did before the fire started. Can you get us to the nearest pier, please? We'll find our way home from there."
"Of course,"
replied the Coast Guard.
"But I will be in touch with your employers about this, and I will be investigating this fire, so I'm afraid I shall have to ask you for more information on this matter as soon as I do so."
"Of course, officer,"
agreed the captain.
"And I think I speak for all of us when I say that we will all offer you our unconditional support."
"Much appreciated,"
said the Coast Guard. As soon as they found a pier, the Coast Guard docked there and the crew disembarked. They said their goodbyes to him and he went on his way again. But by now it was dark, and he was still struggling to see his way through the thick fog.
Oh, it's too thick,
He groaned.
but I have to get back. I have to. The lads at the station will never let me hear the end of this if I get lost.
But he was running out of fuel, and soon his tank was empty. With the last of his power, the Coast Guard resolved to dock himself at the nearest pier, try and contact Port Authority, and meanwhile stay where he was until the fog had lifted and he was refueled. Soon, he began to see lights coming from buildings off his port side.
That's strange,
he thought.
There weren't any buildings here when I passed by earlier. Unless...
A worrying and annoying thought crossed his mind.
Oh no!
He groaned.
I must have gotten lost!
Tired and humiliated, the Coast Guard carried on. He felt sure that his colleagues and superiors would be unimpressed with him if he got lost, to say the least, but knew it would be best for him to keep going for as long as he could.
Oh well,
he said to himself.
Where there's buildings near water, there's a pier.
All the same, he couldn't help but feel strange around these buildings. They seemed so familiar, and yet felt so eerily silent. They were practically like a ghost town. Not a soul could be seen on the streets, nor the sound of anyone's footsteps or voices heard, save for his own engine. Eventually, he found a small port. It was spacious, but not very well kept, and the piers looked like they would collapse at any minute. But it was better than nothing, and he knew full well that beggars couldn't be choosers. He had just moored up at the pier on the starboard side, when he heard a voice coming from behind him that made him jump nearly out of his hull in fright. "Who goes there?" the voice boomed. Nervously, the Coast Guard looked around. Just behind him, he saw a large tugboat coming up on his port side. It was long and dirty, about the size of Big Mac, and covered from bow to stern in rust. There was something sinister about the tugboat. A large scar ran down one eye, under a sailor's cap that looked decidedly beaten. There was no sign of a name on the tugboat's hull. It appeared to have been scraped off some time ago. A hardened, foul look was spread across his face. The Coast Guard thought of all the old wrecks in the breakers' yard, and how much more cleaner they seemed compared to him.
Ahoy there! Hove to!
He said, unsure what else to say. "What's your business?" the tugboat demanded.
Coast Guard patrol!
replied the Coast Guard. "Coast Guard, eh?" said the tugboat. "Well, that's all right enough, I suppose." He came up alongside the Coast Guard and moored up on the pier opposite him.
"You're not from round here, are you?"
he asked.
"No, I'm from Big City,"
replied the Coast Guard.
"A city boy, eh?"
grunted the tugboat.
"Oh, you'd best watch yourself round here. There's tugs round these parts who'll whip your bridge off." "Oh, I think I can hold my own. I've met more than my fair share of thugs in my time. Oh, some of them I have to live with,"
the Coast Guard replied, thinking of Johnny Cuba and the Z-Stacks.
"Hey, well, leastways, I doubt there's any way you can get back home tonight,"
the tugboat replied. The Coast Guard looked around him.
"Any chance you could tell me where I am?"
he asked. "You're in Shoreham," replied the tugboat simply.
"Shoreham?"
frowned the Coast Guard.
"I've never heard of it. I certainly never saw it on any maps in this area before, and I've been up and down here dozens of times."
Them authorities probably didn't see much point of putting it on the map," replied the tugboat. The Coast Guard paused.
"You know, you don't look in too good condition yourself,"
he said cautiously, with genuine concern in his voice. "What's it to you?" grunted the tugboat gruffly.
Well, it's just the
Coast Guard stuttered, unsure what to say next. He didn't want to sound insensitive. "Scar?" finished the tugboat. His expression softened slightly.
It's alright. I'm not one of them thugs. I just got it during the war is all.
The Coast Guard felt relieved.
I see,
He said.
served your time, did you? Aye,
Said the tugboat.
well that's very, commendable of you. Very commendable indeed. In fact,
He said, lowering his flag to half-mast.
I salute you, sir.
Thank you, said the tugboat with a small glimmer of a smile. His glower returned, however.
But I wish old Thor was here to see this all end.
Who's for? Asked the Coast Guard. Long story, said the tugboat.
I've got time,
The Coast Guard replied. He had been trying to get the harbour master's attention by this point, but with no luck, and decided that he must have left home for the day. He decided at that point that he might as well listen to a story until he could contact someone from the port, or wait until the weather was clear and ask his companion to tow him back to Big City.
Well, old Thor was one of the biggest tugs around,
The tugboat began.
had the strength of 10 and the heart to match. Weren't no one he wouldn't help when they was in a pinch. Problem was, he was a navy tug. Kept going on and on about how they top brass kept on giving him the dangerous job, like taking munitions. But he was well respected though, especially in the town of Shoreham. Aye, many's the time when he could be found here, either delivering or fetching goods, or else bringing in some poor soul who had broken down or lost at sea, to help him get fixed up, or find out where they were and where they needed to go, you understand?
The tugboat said.
Of course,
Said the Coast Guard.
Well now, old Thor wasn't one who suffered fools gladly, and he saw to it that anyone who tried something funny with the town was sent packing, see? Yes,
Said the Coast Guard.
I know his type. Vigilante sort. I know a few tugs like that.
He said, thinking of my star tugs.
Nothing I'd encourage myself, but commendable enough in and of itself. But what happened to Thor? Is he still around?
The tugboat seemed to sigh sadly.
You know the Great War? Yes,
Said the Coast Guard.
I was only built shortly after it, but I was told about it right enough by OJ. He's a paddle steamer, you understand, and was around during that time. It sounded absolutely dreadful, to say the least. Ports all around the world destroyed, countless boats and ships sunk, to say nothing of all those poor souls on board.
He sighed mournfully.
Oh, it's a terrible thing to think about.
Then you'd like old Thor. The tugboat smiled sympathetically.
The thing is, he used to work at a navy base up the coast. They was always getting ships and barges of stuff. Aye, every day he'd be delivering goods to or from there, but always made time to stop at Shoreham. In fact, some of his loads are from Shoreham. Mainly food rations from the nearby farms, you see. Anywho, he'd always stop at the port for a refill on coal and chat with the locals. Another busy day, Thor? The lady tug would ask him. Aye, she was a pretty lass, painted bright blue with a small bridge and a stack twice her headlight, and a switcher too. Aye, Claire, and ain't gonna get no quieter with this war on, Thor would say. The two were slightly sweeter than each other, you see. Rumour has it, they had a fin going. Well, you'd better take care of yourself,
Claire would say.
I wouldn't want you to get blown up.
Nor I ye, said Thor. By gum, the way them two behaved, they should have got a port together. Ugh.
But such bliss weren't to last. One day, Thor arrived in Shoreham to see everything in a mess. Everyone was rushing about. The weather was stormier than Noah's Ark, and the waves coming in struck the town like lightning bolts. Wood, bricks, crates, metal and glass flew everywhere, as folk were rushing about, trying to get away from there. What's going on? Asked Thor.
Mayday, Thor! Mayday!
Cried Claire.
There's a typhoon coming! A giant tidal wave! The entire town's going under! If we don't do something now, everyone's...
Hey, I understand, Thor said. He looked at Claire. She was already full to bursting with people in crates aboard her. Just get yourselves out of here! I'll take this lot!
Are you crazy, Thor?
Claire cried.
Do you even know what will happen to you?
Aye, but you're a switcher. I'm a harbour tug. I'll stand a better chance than you. Besides, you're full to bursting, Claire. For God's sakes, get going already! With tears in her eyes, Claire started away. She looked back and said,
Thor!
He looked at her.
I love you!
And I love you, Thor said. Now go! Claire didn't wanna. She wanted to stay. Old Thor could see that. But she was a sensible lass. She knew that the lives aboard her depended on her now. So she turned and made her way to Big City. All Thor could do was wait, and hope things would be alright. Folk hurried aboard him, carrying crate after crate of goods and belongings. Entire families huddled together. Everyone was rushing to get out of Shoreham before the typhoon hit. The last of the townsfolk boarded, the mooring rope was untied, and Thor started off. Alright, he said. Let's get going. Sharp like! Oh, how he tried to do so. But the waves were pushed against him. They crashed up and nor him, soaking the townsfolk somewhat rotten. It was slow going, but he did give up. I've gotta try, he said valiant-like. Oh, but no matter how hard he tried, 'tweren't no good. The waves got bigger and bigger, till finally one came so big that it overturned him and he capsized. Poor devil sank like a stone to the bottom of the ocean. Very few of his crew and the townsfolk survived. Most of them were trapped beside him when he was hit, or else drowned, or their bodies lost at sea. Aye, it was a terrible sight when the salvage and lifeboat teams came to rescue everyone. Folk mourning the deaths of their beloveds, be they daughters, sons, nieces, nephews, cousins, spouses. Dead bodies everywhere, men, women, children and babies. But the worst of it all was old Thor. When they finally got his remains up, he was thoroughly smashed. His bridge was just a pile of timber. His hull was blasted clean through. His stack was cut clean in half. And his engine was nothing but scrap metal.
How dreadful,
gasped the Coast Guard. Aye, 'twas, the tugboat said mournfully. Reckon no more than a dozen or so survived. Everyone knew, though, 'twould have been more if Thor hadn't got Claire to shift and took her sooner. Right shaken up she was too, and all. Nothing could stop her crying, not even being sold to a tugboat fleet upriver. For all I know, she's still there now working, I hope.
Why? What do you mean?
Asked the Coast Guard.
Did you meet her?
The tugboat was about to reply when the Coast Guard was distracted by a familiar whistle, a voice calling out to him, and the sounds of paddles striking the water. He looked around quickly. The weather was still dark and foggy, so he couldn't see anything clearly aside from the tugboat and the pier. The sounds got closer and closer, and out of the fog came OJ, his powerful searchlights glaring brightly through the fog.
What are you doing out here, Coast Guard?
Asked OJ.
Sorry, OJ, but I'm afraid I ran out of fuel,
replied the Coast Guard.
I see. Bit dangerous here, isn't it?
The paddle steamer added.
Oh no, not a bit. Couldn't be safer,
remarked the Coast Guard. Said OJ, uncertain of what to make of everything.
Anyway, I've come to take you home. Port Authority's worried sick about you. Thank you, OJ,
the Coast Guard replied.
But would you mind taking me to the fuel depot first? By all means,
smiled OJ. He was about to throw a line over to the Coast Guard when the latter suddenly spoke up again.
By the way, OJ, have you met my friend here?
The Coast Guard looked around for the tugboat, but he wasn't there, and neither was the pier. The Coast Guard was silent for a long while. At last he spoke up, his voice quivering.
Where is he?
Who? Asked OJ.
The tugboat that was here just now, and where's the pier? What pier?
Feeling uneasy, the Coast Guard told OJ everything, from the location of the town to the tugboat's appearance, right down to the story he had been told about Thor. OJ listened, his brow creased in thought. Then, at long last, he spoke, his voice full of nothing but sympathy.
I met Thor, you know. Several times, in fact. He'd sometimes come to Big City to collect his barges. He was a good sort of tug indeed, and even helped me when I was struggling with some of my barges from time to time. I remember when Claire came to the port too, when that typhoon hit. And it hit us all hard. It took us weeks to clean up the port. I was the one who escorted the salvage team to the site of the wreck, while Port Authority led the lifeboat team. Oh, what a horrible sight it was to see poor Thor all smashed to bits, and to see the town completely flooded underwater too. No one was ever able to recover it. For one thing, we didn't have the equipment. For another, it was wartime, and we couldn't afford to spend any more time trying to save a town that had practically been destroyed. And so even now it stands on the seabed, with only the fish to populate it. Claire got out of it all right, and as you say, she is now working upriver. But it was a solemn duty we both had, taking Thor's remains to be broken up. It seems, however, that not even death will stop Thor though. I remember how some months later, on a night such as this, I too was lost and running low on coal. I came across this town. I was puzzled. I'd been sure it was abandoned. Then I saw my old friend. I was both overjoyed and confused to see him. Originally, I thought that some saint of a scrap merchant had actually managed to repair him. Oh, unfortunately, when Tansant found me the next day, I was the only tugboat around aside from him. I said nothing to him, as I felt sure he'd only laugh. But soon rumors started to fly around of a ghost town occupied by a ghost tug. It always seemed to happen to ships and boats who were lost in this area on a night like this. I don't know why the town would reappear, but my guess is that Thor is looking out for us even now, by simply providing lost vessels with company until help arrives. He is, you might say, an echo of the past.
The Coast Guard said nothing. He simply went very pale. He remembered what he had said earlier about ghosts. He certainly began to doubt himself now. OJ took him back to Big City Port, and then made a full report to me. Knowing how traumatized the Coast Guard was feeling, I sent him to be refueled while I contacted Port Authority about all that had happened. Needless to say, he saw to it that no one else knew about the Coast Guard's ordeal except for the four of us. It was a whole week before the Coast Guard had fully recovered. Even then, every week on that very same night, he would often deliberately make his patrol runs past that very same spot, albeit with a full tank of fuel. Then he would stop, as his crew dropped a reef into the ocean in the very same spot where he had met Thor. He would say a short prayer of thanks, remain there silently for a minute, and then head home. Admittedly, the Star Tugs and Z-Stacks were uncertain what to make of this.
He's going soft in the bridge,
Exclaimed Zoran.
No one does something like that so regularly, not unless they're religious or something.
I wouldn't say so, Zoran, corrected Hercules grimly. You know the Coast Guard. He has his reasons. The best thing to do is just to accept them. But OJ and the Coast Guard never responded to questions about this unusual behaviour. Instead, OJ just claimed ignorance to this, while the Coast Guard simply ignored such questions altogether. Some may consider this behaviour uncharacteristic of them, but I would consider it understandable to say the least. As for Thor, sightings of him still persist to this very day. Whenever a vessel is lost in that very same part of the sea, there he in the town of Shoreham would appear, ready to take them in and provide them with company until someone else came to rescue them. Some may say that this is in and of itself a particularly harrowing experience, and they would not be entirely without reason to do so. But I think OJ had the right idea. To me, the ghost of Thor is not just some lonely spectre out at sea looking to make safe harbour or gain his vengeance on some poor soul, but is simply a kind and helpful spirit, an echo of a long-distant and torturous past, dedicated to helping others even from beyond the grave.